So I drove by a really great house today.
Oh, really?
Listen, honey, I know you're nervous, but we need a home that's got room for the baby.
I know. It's just that we have a lot of equity now, and I don't want to make a bad decision and rush into anything.
No, I hear ya.
Today I'm going to start with their market evaluation, review the agency relationships guide, and then we'll talk about the service agreements. And they'll probably have questions since our last meeting. It will sure be good to see them again.
Consumer relationships are extremely important in the business of real estate. That's why RECA, the Real Estate Council of Alberta, has created this Agency Relationships Guide. RECA is the regulatory organization that oversees the activities in the real estate industry. It's responsible for licensing members. And RECA is also mandated to set standards and to protect consumers. Hi, I'm Bob Nicholson. In this program, we'll discuss the different types of relationships that can exist between consumers and real estate industry members. We'll examine some possible conflicts and solutions. Whether you're buying or selling real estate, it's in your best interest to understand these concepts so you can make timely and informed decisions.
So based on our last meeting, I've put together a market evaluation.
Great, because we need a good price.
Yes. What do you think our house is worth, Janet?
Let's look through the market evaluation I've completed for you. It outlines my marketing plan, information about the value of your home, and some marketing tips for your home as well. And there's many pages here, so you can see that it covers a lot of homes in the vicinity. So we have a good idea on the price range that we should be asking. Because we don't...
Well, that seems fair.
Yeah, that was helpful.
We've talked about price and the marketing plan for the home. Now I'd like to discuss agency and the potential relationships we may have. They're explained in the Agency Relationship Guide. Oh, Mia, I see that you have your copy. We briefly discussed this the last time we met, but I want to make sure you understand the choices that you have.
But I thought we already decided we wanted to sell.
Do we really need to go through this, Janet?
It's important for all of us to know how we'll work together so that you're able to make the appropriate choice about our relationship before we enter into any service agreement.
It's an industry member's responsibility to share the guide with a prospective client before you enter into an agency relationship. Agency is the relationship established when two parties agree that one will work on behalf of the other. In accordance with RECA standards, all consumers, whether they are buyers or sellers, will review the Agency Relationships Guide and enter into a written service agreement. A written service agreement has many benefits for the consumer. It clearly sets out the relationship between you and the industry member. It explains the obligations of the industry member and the consumer, and it outlines the responsibilities of each party.
As you know, I work for a brokerage.
So what does that mean?
It means that the agency relationship is between you and the brokerage, and I'm working for the brokerage to help you sell your home and then help you buy your next one.
But aren't we hiring you?
Yes, and we will be working together, but it's important that you understand the agency relationship and the service agreement will be with my brokerage. And because of that, my brokerage and I have certain duties and responsibilities.
What kind of duties?
Let's start with undivided loyalty. That means we work to protect and promote your best interests. It means that both the brokerage and I will act solely in your best interests at all times.
Well, I would expect that.
Of course you would. And confidentiality ties in with that.
When you say confidentiality, what do you mean?
I mean any information of a confidential or personal nature will not be disclosed to the other parties unless it's required to be disclosed by law or you authorize me to disclose it.
But wait, you need to disclose things to us as well, right?
Yeah, good question.
I must tell you any relevant facts that I know that might affect our relationship or influence your decisions. That includes any conflict of interest we might have. It's called full disclosure.
Well, what would be an example of a conflict of interest?
Well, if our brokerage is representing a buyer on the sale of your home, or if someone from our brokerage was going to buy your home, or if the home that you eventually decided to purchase is listed with our brokerage.
What if you were selling your son's home and we saw it and we liked it?
That would be a conflict of interest too. In that case, I would have a special relationship with a property you may be interested in purchasing.
But you'd have to tell us if you had a conflict, right?
Good question.
Definitely. I'm obligated to avoid all conflicts of interest and tell you about any potential conflicts as well.
And if we wanted to proceed even after you've disclosed this potential conflict?
Yes, that would be your choice.
Okay, we know you, but we're in a relationship with the brokerage. How can we be sure that you'll do what you say you'll do?
I have to obey your instructions, provided they're reasonable and lawful. As a professional, I have an obligation to be honest, use reasonable care and skill, and disclose any conflicts of interest, as we just discussed. So, Mia, I'm sure that we'll be able to work together to sell your home and help you find your next one, too.
All right.
Good.
Sounds good.
Sounds great.
It's not a difficult process. I'll guide you through it.
Let's quickly review. The brokerage duties to the consumer in an agency relationship are covered in this guide. Undivided loyalty. The real estate associate must act solely in your best interest, must always put your interest above the agent's own interests and above the interests of other parties. Confidentiality. The real estate associate has a duty to keep your confidences. This includes any confidential information about you, the property, or the transaction that's not required by law to be disclosed, but if disclosed, could be used by another party to your disadvantage. Full disclosure of conflicts and relevant information. The real estate associate must inform you of all facts known to the associate that might affect your relationship or influence your decision in a transaction. Obey the client's lawful instruction. As long as the instructions are reasonable and ordinary under the circumstances, the real estate associate must obey all of your lawful instructions. Exercise reasonable care and skill. The real estate associate must exercise reasonable care and skill in performing all assigned duties.
Janet, I have a question. You mentioned that you must disclose conflicts of interest. What if we want to continue anyway?
Yeah, if you or someone from your brokerage finds a buyer, why is that a conflict of interest?
It would be a conflict of interest because my brokerage would be serving two masters. Let me explain. As sellers, you want to get the highest price and best terms for your home. The buyers want to get your home for the lowest price and the best terms for them.
Right. So how do we deal with that?
There are a number of ways that we can handle this conflict and still continue to provide services to you and the buyer. Our relationship would only change on a temporary basis as the result of a particular transaction. If the transaction does not come together, we would continue with the original agreement. How our relationship changes depends on you and your instructions to me when this happens, and that would need to be done in writing. You would have three options. The first option we need to discuss is called transaction brokerage. I would become a transaction facilitator, and my role and my brokerage's role will be to assist both you and the potential buyers to reach an agreement for the sale of your property.
Would you still have to keep our information confidential?
Definitely. For example, you wouldn't want me to tell the buyer your motivation for selling, or what price you're willing to take, or any personal information. However, I must still disclose any material latent defects about the home that you have shared with me.
If our relationship changes, are you still working for us?
Yeah, are you still working for us?
With respect to the negotiation process between you and the buyers, my brokerage and I will adopt a neutral position, so the buyer has no advantage over you. We must treat both parties in an even-handed, objective, and impartial manner. My role is to facilitate the transaction. That is to assist you and the buyer to reach an agreement.
So realistically, is that possible?
From my past experience, yes. Clients need to decide what is important for them in any transaction. For example, as sellers, only you can decide what price you're willing to accept, what possession date is satisfactory, or what buyer's terms are acceptable. Part of my service to you is to provide you with the information you will need so that you can make an informed decision. Essentially, I can no longer advocate a decision for you, but I can facilitate one. And that's where informed decision-making comes in. I can give you the facts, but you have to make the decision. However, I cannot disclose any personal information about the other party, including their motivation or the price they might pay for your home.
So it really is our decision.
Yes, no matter what relationship we're in, you need to make the decisions that are best for you. No one should be making decisions for you.
We still get the information we need, right?
Yes, and I can provide you with the information and the tools to help you make your decisions.
When we get an offer, how will we know what the market is doing?
Based on the comparative market evaluation I gave you, we already have a pretty good idea of what your home is worth on today's market. Ultimately, your sale price will be determined by what the buyer is prepared to pay and what you are prepared to accept. I will update you on the market with current sales statistics when we get an offer on your home, so you will be making decisions based on current information. In transaction brokerage, the buyer will be entitled to the same sales statistics. In addition, you have the seller information and the guides I gave you on my last visit, which are from the RECA website.
Well, what if we don't want to do transaction brokerage? What other options do we have?
If both clients do not agree to transaction brokerage, unless otherwise agreed to by the parties, the one that entered into an agency relationship first will remain as a client. This is another benefit of having a written service agreement. The client who remains with the brokerage continues to get full representation. You have two other options. You can be a customer. It's called customer status. For this specific transaction, the brokerage would not provide any representation for that party or advocate on their behalf. However, the brokerage can provide customer services, which include real estate statistics, drafting offers and counter offers, and being kept informed on the progress of the transaction. Again, this option is temporary, and if the transaction doesn't come together, the client would return to full representation through the original agreement.
If we didn't want customer status, what's our other option?
The third option is to go to another brokerage to eliminate the conflict and have them work on the transaction as your sole agent. They would provide full agency representation, but only on that specific transaction.
But if we already signed with you, doesn't that break our contract?
No. Written service agreements have a clause that provides you with these three options. This is another benefit of written service agreements. All these options relate to a specific transaction you may be considering. Should the transaction not come together, we return to a sole agency relationship, acting only on your behalf as a client of the brokerage. We would continue to market your home in order to find a buyer and look for your new home together.
Okay, this could work.
We know that conflict is always possible in the real estate business, and there are clear and transparent ways to deal with a conflict. But it is important to recognize that it's the consumer who must make an informed decision. The most common way to deal with this type of conflict is to sign a transaction brokerage agreement.
Transaction brokerage clearly outlines the roles of the industry member. It sets the stage for an even-handed, objective, and impartial treatment of both parties.
The client must provide written consent through the transaction brokerage agreement. This would amend the original buyer's or seller's agreement.
Unless otherwise agreed to by the parties, there are two more options if one party decides not to enter into a transaction brokerage agreement.
The client can choose customer status or can engage another brokerage to complete the transaction. The client must always make the decision based on timely and informed consent. It's why the Real Estate Council of Alberta recommends written service agreements. They're important tools that clearly outline the roles and responsibilities of the brokerage and the client.
Great. Now that we've signed the Agency Relationships Guide, I'd like to look at the service agreement for sellers.
Oh, I think I have that here in my file. Is this it? Exclusive seller brokerage agreement?
Yes, that's it. You might have also heard this referred to as the listing agreement. I think we should review all our respective obligations as well. They're all outlined here. In addition to the duties we just talked about, the brokerage also has some obligations to you as sellers. These would include using our best efforts in finding a buyer for your home, helping negotiate offers, and keeping you informed on the progress of your negotiations and any subsequent transactions. The written service agreement also has some obligations for sellers.
Clients also have duties and obligations to the brokerage. This includes the understanding that they'll use reasonable efforts to communicate and cooperate with the brokerage. Clients are also obligated to disclose to the brokerage any inquiries made by potential buyers about the property and to pay any expenses incurred as a result of carrying out the client's requests.
Clients are obligated to pay any agreed-upon remuneration as outlined in the signed service agreement and to disclose to the brokerage any material latent defects regarding the property. the brokerage must disclose material latent defects to prospective buyers. It's important that buyers and sellers understand material latent defects. An explanation is found in the seller brokerage agreement. If you have any questions about this, please contact your industry member.
If both parties are clear on all these points, they may agree to enter into a written service agreement, which creates an agency relationship.
This is the exclusive seller brokerage agreement. And when we work together to find your new home, we'll use the exclusive buyer brokerage agreement.
This one?
Mm-hmm. Did you get a chance to review it?
Yeah, but when we bought this home, I don't remember signing the buyer brokerage agreement.
Yeah, I don't think I remember either. What's it for?
Well, we discussed the benefits of a seller brokerage agreement. The same benefits are true for a buyer brokerage agreement. It would clarify our relationship, explain our obligations to one another, and outline our respective responsibilities.
Well, that makes sense. I think we can do that. What do you think?
Let's get our place on the market. Can you take us out this weekend to look at some homes?
Great. Let's start by getting your home on the market.
Perfect.
We'll go over these agreements here, and there's just a few things that you need to sign.
Buyers and sellers should always use written service agreements when they're working with an industry member. Written service agreements outline everyone's obligations within the agency relationship, and they clarify how conflicts of interest will be handled. We've focused on common law brokerages in Alberta as the basis for the scenarios we've talked about. Common law means the agency relationship is with the brokerage, not the individual industry member. But a brokerage can decide to operate as a designated agency. In that case, written service agreements are mandatory for buyers and sellers because the agency relationship is with the individual industry member and not the brokerage. This potentially reduces some of the conflict we've talked about. Under designated agency, two associates with the same brokerage representing clients in the same transaction remain in sole agency. There is no conflict of interest in this situation. A designated agent may still need to enter into a transaction brokerage agreement when representing two clients in the same transaction. For example, an associate has a seller's home listed and then finds a buyer for that home. This would be a conflict. But the transaction could still move ahead with a written transaction brokerage agreement. Be aware that if a brokerage is operating under designated agency, they must advise you. Buying or selling a property can be one of the most important financial decisions you'll ever make. It takes time and effort to become informed about your choices. If you have any questions about this, be sure to ask your industry member. Understanding your relationship with your industry member and their brokerage is important for a successful real estate transaction. Taking the time to make an informed decision about your relationship with them is a good investment. If you need more information about agency relationships, written service agreements, buyer information, seller information, or standard residential real estate forms, visit the RECA website at reca.ca. Get the information you need to be informed about your options so you have the facts to make the best decisions for you.